Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
Like if this does work out,
Yes.
so like I want to hold out hope for that.
See, now I feel like I'm getting myself in a position where I'm telling you things that I shouldn't, because it might not be fair to her, but like I've never told Molly that she's like my number one choice. I would not have told her that knowing how I feel about you.
Is that true? I feel like I need to rewind because a lot kind of depends. Now, people can forget or misinterpret, right? Or lie, but I feel like I want to go back.
Like a necklace or something.
Wow.
So,
Molly.
yeah.
Surprising me over here with that.
Yeah.
That was a good little thought.
So I watched this bit again, and they talked about the ring, and it would be hard not to interpret, if you're Molly, that he is definitely leading up to asking Molly to marry him. It would be very irresponsible. We saw that with Leo. He said in the very beginning of that, because he initiated that conversation, he was saying, yeah, I was talking with some of the guys, and I didn't know if you were supposed to start talking about the ring or not. So I thought we would talk about that. And, okay. And then they talked about the ring. He's talking about maybe using his mom's ring. You know, she passed, and then they were agreeing that they should use their own. Anyway, but it isn't overt that he is saying a ring for you. And it makes me wonder how many other couples had this conversation early and they just didn't include it in the edit. I would imagine not, because why? Especially when you're talking to two women. But anyway, so I'm waiting to hear whether or not he says you're my number one.
Yeah, and I kind of want my wife to have her own.
Okay.
But I just think there's too much. I just can't ignore all of this shit. Like, we are literally the same. Mm-hmm. There's one other one I'm still talking to, just to be honest.
No worries, yeah.
I mean, she's also great. But yeah, I mean, it's really starting to separate.
Okay, that was edited. I didn't catch that the first time. So that could be manipulative a little bit, because the way that it was edited, it seems like he's saying, yeah, there's this other one, but it's really starting to separate, meaning implying that you're definitely breaking out ahead, right? Because you wouldn't word it like that in this context after talking about a wedding ring with Molly, right? He wouldn't. It wouldn't be like, yeah, it's really starting to separate. You're definitely falling behind. Like, so it's not directly saying it, but but it was edited there. There was a definite Frankenstein. Now maybe there was just a bunch of ums in there, and they slammed those two things together. But I don't know.
Honestly, like, you were my number one after the first day.
If you were falling,
especially after right now, like today. I'm like, holy shit.
Okay, again, it's edited. You know, the only way I can really trust the sequence of sentences is if they just stay on the person. And I understand that the editors want to edit, you know, they want to go to the other person to see their response, but it does kind of annoy me. But I'm going to guess and say that that was said in sequence. So he's saying you've been number one for a long time, or since the beginning, and particularly right now. And they just got talking about wedding ring, so he definitely was telling. Yeah, Molly would have to be pretty obtuse to not consider what he's saying as a precursor to engagement.
This could be it.
Okay, I like to hear that.
I've been like speaking very highly of you to the guys that do know that I'm dating you. Like, I have two left, and they're like, are you getting any pressure to like end things or like only focus on one? And I'm like, honestly, no. Maybe I should be worried because you've been way too cool about it.
Well, that's interesting. So that was one of the cons of what I was saying earlier, that one of the cons to Molly being so cool and flexible and letting him figure it out is, what does that mean? Does that mean she's not actually that into me, you know? Because I want us to both be really into each other.
A position where I'm telling you things that I shouldn't, because it might not be fair to her, but like, I've never told Molly that she's like my number one choice.
Okay, so I went back and watched and found that he did say that and said it in a lot of, even if he didn't actually say that phrase, which he did. But they edited it, I can't imagine a situation where because, they're in a date for hours, and at one point he says, I've had you as my number one for a long time. Or I had you as my number one in the very beginning. And now, just to be honest, I'm not really quite sure. So, I feel really good about you, so it could have been something like that, but I don't know. If the edit is representative of the overall message, there were a lot of messages there, particularly the rig talk, that he was definitely giving the clear impression to Molly that he was going to propose. Now, Lauren was saying that Molly comes into the lounge and says, he says I'm a number one. And she's kind of upset about that. And I think there are some understandable or fair responses that she's having that I think a lot of people have, but I think there's some other parts of it that I think are unfair for everyone concerned. And then he is now telling her, I didn't tell her that she's my number one. I could see a scenario where he just doesn't remember saying that phrase, and he thinks what he's been telling Molly is like a diplomatic way of saying, look, you're definitely high on the list, but he hasn't, in his mind, committed to saying we're definitely moving forward to engagement, because he doesn't even feel that right now. So I could see how he thinks he's telling the truth right now when I don't think he is. So, because I've seen this before. We've seen scenes like this before, and I think it's a lot to ask that in all of the ups and downs emotionally that they could definitively remember exactly what they said and how they said it. Now, if he's honest with himself and with Lauren, he would say, well, I don't know if I said that to her, but yeah, to be honest, I was giving her a pretty clear impression. This is kind of starting to look a little bit like Leo in that, because, if we think about how Madison was dating both Alex and Mason, Madison seemingly, and we never know what point they are in the 10 days, but it seemed like Madison, had some overlap period there where she might have been kind of stringing Mason along a little bit, but pretty quickly she makes a choice and commits. Either because she just really wants to be with Alex and she doesn't want to wait anymore, and or she doesn't want to string Mason along anymore. So I think that's something that we see often, and that feels better, I think, to a lot of us. It feels better to me when that happens. But when stuff like this happens, again, I don't know what day I think you can usually, there are hints of what part they are in the 10 days by how many people are in the lounge, because by the end of the 10 days, for the people who haven't connected with anyone, they don't come to the pods. Or the pod situation is a lot of people are going to the second shift, because there's a day shift that there's all the camera crew and everyone, and that's where all the cast is there in the pods. But then some people at like dinner time, they go to the hotel, but other people request, can I do evening dating, because I still want to see my person, or I still want to narrow this down. And it's a much smaller cast, and because of unions, I think there's like a whole new camera crew and everyone else. But anyway, so I think the evening stuff tends to happen later in the week. I don't know, but there seem to be very few people in the lounge, which I think says they're pretty late in the week. At least the way it kind of, if it is later in the 10 days, this justifies why Lauren is like, hey, you got to get to the answer here. This is getting ridiculous. So if it is later in the 10 days, then we could be seeing another situation like Leo, where you have Dave, who is, for whatever reason, just procrastinating way too long, and might even either lose out on a relationship that he might have wanted to pursue because she's so fed up. I don't think Molly's going to do that, but Lauren could. Or that no one will want to be with him, kind of the way that Leo experienced, because it just sours the whole thing because there was too much anger and upset feelings. So, and why would someone like Leo and why would someone like Dave do that? I think the common interpretation is that they're narcissistic and manipulative and they just like having multiple women hanging on their every word, and they don't intend on picking anybody because they're assholes. That's possible. I don't think that's true about Leo and Dave. There are more likely Occam's razor kinds of explanations, and those would include that it's just taking them a really long time to figure it out. I feel like we've seen that before, where it seems like the focus of a triangle literally waits until the very last day. I feel like that's happened before. We can never know because they don't tell us. Sometimes you can tell by their outfits based on, because they, every day there's a different outfit, and so you can kind of count it. But anyway, so it could be that Dave is just seeing it through. And I think we've heard from my contact and cast members that production actually will say, hey, don't be pressured to make a decision. Go as long as if you're on the fence, you've got time, and that's the expectation. So you could see people being influenced by that. You could see production either caring about people in Dave's position of like, don't be pressured, or more footage and drama because stuff like this happens. I don't know. So that's one possible factor. Another is that the Daves and the Leos of the world actually don't even know what they want, which we could see for Dave. I forget Leo's history, but in terms of dating, but Dave, according to what he's saying, there are a lot of signs that he has never had like a real relationship, a real romantic love, mutual love, honest, authentic, vulnerable relationship. And so he doesn't know what to look for. He feels certain feelings with Lauren. He feels certain feelings with Molly, but he doesn't have any experience with, well, which one of these sets of feelings is an indication of optimism regarding marriage? I don't know because I've never been there before, right? Or I've never seen it before or something, you could see that. There's another possibility, I suppose, that by hypothesizing about some sort of personality issue related to very early trauma, related to issues of defenses of self-centeredness or lack of empathy or something. It's looking less and less like that's the case with him. But if we go with that hypothesis, then it could be hard for him to either care about other people and being strung along. It doesn't look that way, honestly, but it could be that, or he's having a hard time even accessing his own emotions to like gauge who he should be with. I suppose another factor that's kind of related, is a different way of saying it, is that he, because of his defenses and his maybe modeling and upbringing, he has empathy, but he doesn't have that like robust empathy that would motivate him to really wrestle with this conundrum and figure it out sooner than later, because he would really worry about stringing someone like Lauren along, because Lauren in particular is, seemingly would be hurt by the situation. So maybe he has enough empathy to exhibit some of the things we've seen, but not enough to go home, go to the hotel at night and go, okay, I've got to make a choice here. I don't feel confident and I feel a little pressure, but I feel so bad for Lauren or whoever I feel like I'm not going to choose. And I've got to override my concern for my own, process, and just say I've got to make a choice because this is too cruel. This is I can't stand this anymore. I mean, that's how I would feel. I would just be like, I don't like this feeling. I'm just gonna pick because now would I do that? I don't know. I would have an impulse to do it. I would have an impulse to just run away. Honestly, that's kind of my style. But because it would, I don't know, it'd just be so like the pressure and the time crunch and yeah. And it kind of looks like, given her energy and her display of like, hey, I want to be with you, contrasts so much with Molly that he's just like, oh, wow, maybe. And it also could help Lauren because the way that he sees her is this mousy elementary school teacher who doesn't have like the fire. And maybe this is demonstrating that.
I would not have told her that knowing how I feel about you. I told you I could see myself proposing to you.
Yeah.
I have not said that to anyone else.
Yeah. So I think I remember saying this with Leo too. So another possibility is that he feels bad and he has these really ham-fisted, unwise ways of trying to make someone feel better. And in the process, he is saying things that maybe he convinces himself of in the moment but aren't true and can't be true. He's not saying it definitively or directly, but he is dating two women right after each other, giving a lot of signals. And he just gave one to Lauren. I could see myself proposing to you. Now, he could argue, well, yeah, I can see myself proposing to her, but I could much more see myself propose to Molly. But why say that if you're talking, he's in that realm, right? He's being put to the test, and to say that. Now, what I really hope is that whatever happens, that Lauren doesn't go back into the lounge and starts rumor mongering and blasting Molly, like that whole Johnny situation, because I didn't show it, but Lauren was talking with Sarah quietly and wondering if Molly is manipulative, and and given what he just said to her, she actually has a lot of reasons to believe that Molly is, and she said Delulu. She says, like, one of us is Delulu, meaning one of us is wrong and deluding ourselves that he is saying that we're number one. But we're seeing that indirectly he is telling them both that. And it's a weird situation, but I think we've seen other people navigate these waters better. Like if he is truly, let's say if we could, read his mind, and he truly does care, and he truly is, neck and neck, and then whoever he's with in the date, he's like, oh, well, now what do I, well, you would hope that what you would say would account for that. But it's so weird. I mean, how often would you in life be put in a situation like this where you have to tell someone how you feel and tell them that you're definitely, I could see myself with you, and I could see myself with the other person, and I don't know what to do. Or am I supposed to say that other part? Because that seems hurtful. It's a weird situation. But I think he might have a tendency to say what other people want to hear without thinking if it's wise to say that.
And I actually really can. I think you are like one of the best people I've met, not just like here, but like in general. I can just hear in your voice, like you're extremely genuine and kind. You have like continued to surprise me every day, every date. And when I look back at like notes that I wrote about you, I'm just like, I do have like love feelings for Lauren.
And then you say the L word. Now, if he's about to go with Lauren, then okay. But it doesn't look that way. So, because there's certain markers that I don't know if it's an official guide that they have or it's just their sense of things, but they, I think, say they reserve the word love or falling in love for commitment, and I'm all in on you, and we're definitely headed towards engagement, but we just need a couple more dates to kind of lock that down and make sure. Or it's day 7 and we're not supposed to get engaged till day 9 or something. Because in the real world, I could see a scenario where he genuinely does love both, depending on how he feels love. That could absolutely happen. But when you say love, I think it's a signal of I'm all in. And if you say love and you love the other person, you should say that. But it's like, who does that, right? So, yeah, I think either he is falling for Lauren in this moment. Well, even if he is, he should put the brakes, because he should realize that he's he's roller coastering. He's going back and forth. And although he feels that he should wait because he might later on say the same thing to Molly. So I'll go back to, the earlier hypothesis, which I don't see much evidence of, but he could be stringing her along. If I was to take a guess, Lauren is still in his heart number 2. And he doesn't want to not have that as an option moving forward because he's thinking, well, you never know. But if I had to make a choice today, it would definitely be Molly. But I don't want to let it, I want my options open, and I don't really care if that means stringing Lauren along. So it kind of looks like that. What do you think?
How'd your date go?
It was good.
It was really good. I think I like hearing some really different.
Yeah, same.
She was saying that he said he's gonna break it off with you.
He told her that he was gonna break it off with me. That's not what he said to me.
Well, exactly. I was like,
Okay. Yeah. So Dave told Molly, and I don't feel like going back and rewatching, but I think he did say this. At the very least, he was highly implying it, that he was going to break it off with Lauren. And Molly's like, okay, well, do what you, and was giving the impression like it was going to happen in the very next date. And so Dave requests to meet up with Lauren in a date, and they have that. And then Molly is waiting there on the couch and noticing, this date is going on for like 1 or 2 hours. How long does it take to break up with someone? That's weird. But okay. And then Lauren comes back in and isn't crying. And so Molly is like, huh? But Molly is not getting involved. She's not getting hooked in the love triangle. It seems like she cares, but she is not talking shit, I guess. And I will say that there was a moment where she was talking with a friend, whispering, and she was saying that she thinks that Lauren is the other person. And she was thinking back to earlier in the week when she told Lauren that her number one person, the person she's going to marry, is Dave. And she's like, and the way that Molly framed it was, and I feel like a jerk because I was like forcing that information, and Lauren was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to talk about it. So Molly was taking the blame on that. I mean, she doesn't need to take the blame, but she wasn't blaming Lauren. She wasn't saying, I said it, and then Lauren like lied and just didn't even say who she was. It was nothing like that. So it was nice to hear that. Lauren is particularly tweaked. She's talked about that, and she's admitting that. But anyway, so Madison heard from Molly. Whenever we get in these lounge situations, it's just like, middle school kind of conversation. But humans, it's not immature. This is life, and it's okay. Madison was hearing from Molly that. So Molly tells Madison and a couple other people, yeah, he told me that he was going to break up with Lauren. So that's what's happening right now. And Lauren comes back in and she's like, yeah, it was a good day. Madison's like, well, that's not what he said. That's not what Molly said. Molly said that Dave said that he was going to break up with you next time. And Lauren's like, well, geez, that's weird. So Lauren either has to think that Molly's lying or Dave is lying, or Dave changed his mind, which I want to say happens. And it kind of looked that way. I think Dave, he either is swayed by wanting to please, which is possible. He doesn't come across like someone that would be that way, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have that. People can have, we have this stereotype of what a pleaser looks like, right? A pushover. He doesn't present like that, at least to me. But I have met people that seem extremely self-centered and extremely self-serving, and yet they are like wall-to-wall pleaser all the time. And it only manifests in certain intense relationship scenarios. Anyway, so it could be that, or it could be that when Lauren really came in fiery, he's just like, whoa, I would never get this from Molly. this feels intense. I was definitely thinking about Lauren, and she's a fighter, and she cares. And is that evidence that she has real feelings for me? Because I have feelings for her, so it could be that. Or he's an asshole. What do you think?
I just sat there and I was like, wow, this is also interesting.
Uh-huh. I straight up said to him, I'm like, hey, you came last night and said that you told her she was your number one. And he was like, I did not say that.
I think he's playing you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so Madison is not assuming that Molly is lying and saying that Dave is confused or lying. And Madison is saying, I think he's playing you guys. And yeah, and I could see how that would look like that, particularly if you're Madison because you're not there. But, and it could be. But I think I would put money down on the other hypotheses, that he's a pleaser or he is on the fence unless he is, maybe like if he's with Molly, he's like, oh, definitely Molly. But if he's with Lauren, particularly if Lauren is like, really showing it, then he's like, oh, well, now I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I put Lauren for sure number one, but definitely I don't know if I want to break up with Lauren. Like, it kind of looks that way to me. And I think that's fine. People can change their mind. Other people have done that. And the simplistic explanation of like, they're lying, they're fake, they're just trying to get on the show, which all could be true. I think we don't know, but there are other hypotheses that are more likely. All right, well, let's adjourn there. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, truly, because you deserve it. You really, really do.